The metropolis thrummed with the early energy of aspiration, its glass skyscrapers catching the sunlight, motors purring, shoes clicking against the sleek marble of a business district courtyard. Within the flow of suited professionals, a single young girl caught the eye, her delicate rose-colored dress swaying at her knees while she held a miniature plaything in her grasp. She was called Sophie, a reserved child of 6 whose mother, Clara, served as a language specialist for one of the city's most affluent entrepreneurs, Mr. Ling, a millionaire who had built his fortune from nothing and whose business interests spanned multiple nations. This particular morning had been expected to follow the usual pattern. Clara had needed to bring Sophie with her because their childcare provider had backed out, and she had assured her daughter they would make just one quick visit before returning to their apartment. Yet in one fleeting instant, that unremarkable morning transformed into an event that would alter the trajectory of everyone's existence irreversibly. Before we continue further, if you value compassion, bravery, and the opportunity for redemption, then please consider taking a moment to like, leave a comment, share this content, and subscribe to Black Kindness. Your engagement enables narratives such as this one to touch additional lives. The early daylight streamed through the massive glass entryway as Clara knelt down next to Sophie, straightening her sweater. At their backs, 3 guards in uniform positioned themselves near a polished black vehicle stationed at the roadside. Mr. Ling had recently concluded a media briefing and was scheduled to depart for his next appointment. The scene appeared flawless, perhaps excessively so. The atmosphere felt tranquil, almost staged. Sophie's inquisitive gaze drifted from her mother toward the security personnel who were conversing in hushed tones amongst themselves. She cocked her head to the side, picking up fragments she couldn't comprehend. And then abruptly, comprehension struck. Clara had been introducing Sophie to simple expressions in various languages as an enjoyable activity, and Mandarin Chinese was among them. The young girl grasped just enough to become paralyzed in place. The phrases drifted from their lips like frozen crystals. The explosive device is positioned beneath the seat. He will not survive beyond the bridge. Her small fingers clenched around her plaything more tightly. Her respiration halted. She remained motionless, but the vitality vanished from her complexion. Clara detected her daughter's abrupt rigidity and dropped to her level, worry shadowing her features. "Sophie, what's the matter?" she asked softly, but her child merely gazed at the security men, her mouth quivering. Mr. Ling was approaching the vehicle, exchanging handshakes with several business contacts, displaying a confident smile as though he commanded the entire universe. Sophie pivoted in his direction, her diminutive voice cutting through the rumble of motors and conversations. "Don't enter the car." For an instant, the courtyard went still, attention shifted. The child's warning pierced the ambient noise like a siren. The guards became alert, their expressions betraying alarm before one of them touched his communication device. Clara's pulse ceased. She had no understanding of why Sophie had cried out, but the fear in her daughter's tone was impossible to mistake. Mr. Ling paused mid-stride, bewilderment and worry merging across his features. Then his eyes found the young girl's shaking hand gesturing toward the automobile. Something within her gaze, that unfiltered, frantic authenticity, compelled him to retreat. "Hold on," he commanded. Within moments, the protection detail sprang into action, examining the vehicle. One of the guards, anxious and perspiring, attempted to dismiss the concern, maintaining that all was well. But when a different guard pulled open the rear door, the subtle mechanical ticking extinguished every noise in the courtyard. The following moments became a haze, sirens from law enforcement, frenzied yelling, a hurried clearing of the area, and then the detonation tore through the parking zone, hurling smoke and wreckage toward the heavens. The vehicle had exploded ahead of schedule, protecting everyone who had delayed boarding it. Mr. Ling remained standing there, visibly disturbed, yet breathing. The impact of the blast had pushed him off balance, his pale shirt marked with grime. Sophie wrapped herself around her mother's torso, eyes enormous, weeping quietly. The surviving security personnel were taken into custody without delay. 2 of them proved to be frauds recruited through a questionable protection company, components of a conspiracy that authorities subsequently revealed as a deliberate murder scheme. Several hours afterward, once the turmoil had subsided, the wealthy businessman sat facing Clara and Sophie within the stark environment of the law enforcement facility. His gaze, typically keen and analytical, now held something unfamiliar, appreciation and remorse. "She preserved my existence," he uttered quietly, observing the child who concealed half her features behind her mother's limb. Sophie offered no verbal response. She simply gave a slight acknowledgement with her head, her eyes reddened from her tears. Mr. Ling released a slow breath, his voice fragmenting. I don't believe anyone has previously done such a thing for me. Days transformed into weeks. The media coverage created national attention. Wealthy executive rescued by child's alert. But what the recording equipment failed to document was how that singular demonstration of valor reshaped the existences of all parties concerned. Mr. Ling came to see Clara and Sophie regularly. He discovered that Clara had been nurturing her daughter without a partner since her spouse's death 24 months prior. She dedicated extended periods translating materials and participating in business gatherings merely to maintain their modest living space. Sophie had absorbed fragments of Mandarin from overhearing her mother rehearsing at their residence, the identical language that inadvertently enabled her to avert a catastrophe. What started as appreciation gradually evolved into something more profound. Mr. Ling discovered solace in their company, the joy he'd long abandoned, the sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in countless years. For Sophie, he transformed into a figure resembling the father she yearned for so intensely, someone who gave attention to her narratives and nurtured her inquisitiveness. For Clara, he represented evidence that goodness persisted in an existence that frequently seemed harsh and impersonal. Gradually, he initiated support for Clara's profession, establishing a linguistic education initiative in Sophie's honor to assist young people from disadvantaged households in acquiring foreign languages. So that they may possess courage as well, he expressed with a tender smile. But what genuinely transformed Mr. Ling wasn't the experience of being rescued. It was the realization of how insignificant matters he had disregarded throughout his existence could signify everything. He had invested generations constructing barriers of prosperity and influence. But it required a child's pure bravery to demonstrate to him that compassion still held greater importance than any commercial dominion. Several months afterward, as the three of them gathered together on the identical courtyard where everything had transpired, the metropolis pulsing with activity surrounding them, Mr. Ling faced Sophie and expressed, "You didn't merely preserve my existence. You showed me the true meaning of living it." The young girl offered a timid smile and glanced at her mother, who pressed her shoulder with pride. The glass structure rising behind them caught the morning sunlight, a subtle emblem of fresh starts, not created from fortune or recognition, but from affection, bravery, and opportunities for renewal. Before we conclude this narrative, if this scene resonated with your spirit, please take an instant to like, share, and subscribe to Black Kindness. Your participation enables us to deliver authentic emotional narratives of empathy and valor to audiences. Now share with us in the comment section. What actions would you have taken if you had been in Sophie's position that morning? Would you have possessed the bravery to voice your warning? Occasionally, the most diminutive voices carry the most powerful verities. Sophie's courage serves as a reminder that even within an existence saturated with anxiety, a child's spirit can rescue not merely a single existence, but numerous ones. And for Clara and Mr. Ling, that solitary demonstration of bravery proved sufficient to transform the narrative of their existences. A narrative of belief, compassion, and the strength of pursuing what is righteous, regardless of how insignificant or frightened you may feel. Because benevolence, expressed in any tongue, possesses the power to rescue the world.